The Relationship Management Process, Part 1. If you have seen any of the other Notebook on Life presentations, you may remember that we have been looking at both the controls and the resources that we have been given in life. The controls that we encounter come from many sources. We'll look at how the controls influence our relationships. One's knowledge and application of knowledge, called wisdom, is acquired over time by listening to others who have experience in the field and by reading books written by them. There have been many who have contributed to this presentation. Here's a short list of people who have made a major contribution to this presentation. Relationship management is the study of how we interact with others and how our actions and our attitudes influence others. You cannot manage a relationship without good communications. Although they are shown separately, they are closely related. We'll look at some of the communication skills required in order to have a good relationship. Managing a relationship also requires some decision-making skills, along with biblical principles and society's standards. Now, don't let this chart scare you. I only wanted to show you the outline of the material that we will cover in the upcoming sessions. When we finish, you should be able to look at each area and understand how a relationship is built or destroyed. Today, we'll only deal with the first block. When we think of a relationship, we first think of one-on-one, that special someone in our life. The dictionary lists 4 definitions of a relationship. For this presentation, relationships have been divided into 6 levels. The general public is a level 6 relationship. Level 5 are business associates that you come in contact with daily. Level 4 are friends that range from business associates that you get together with on the outside of work, and close friends who you have shared more information about yourself and trust them to keep it confidential. Level 3 have a family bond. You may fight like cats and dogs at home, yet will defend to the death a family member against others who come against them. Level 2 is reserved for those who have an intimate relationship with you. This is most likely your husband or wife. At level 2, the relationship is a bond of oneness. There's one more level, and that of self. At level 1, it's all about you. Everything revolves around you. How we respond in a relationship will depend upon how we process information about the relationship. We find that there are 6 areas of influence. The family environment plays a major role. The size of the family and the birth order will influence how you respond to others. Where you lived, whether it was a metropolitan area or an isolated rural community. The kind of education you received, the occupation that you are involved in, one's temperament, whether you're a type A or a type B, and one's spiritual knowledge. They all influence how the information is processed and understood. No 2 people will see things exactly alike. In fact, 2 people can look at the same picture and see it differently. Take, for example, this picture. This is a famous picture that most of you have all seen before. For those who have not, who do you see? The old lady or the young lady? Or can you see both? Our first impression of a person will influence how you will respond to them. Let me remove the young lady's necklace and her ear. Now do you see the young lady? Can you see both now? First impressions are always hard to break. I have found that every time I look at this picture, I first see the old lady. That's who I saw the first time. First impressions, although important, should not be the basis for a relationship. We've all heard of love at first sight. Well, be careful. In a relationship, two people do not always see the same situation in the same way. Good communications and good relationships leaves room for the other's perception. Relationships generally start out in a neutral position. What action causes the emotional change? Remember love at first sight? Well, do you know what causes one's emotions to go through the roof? It's the emotion of love. At this point, we'll not dig any deeper into why this emotion is triggered, only to say it is caused by perception. Some say it's just human nature. Question: if you're cut off in traffic, why do some develop what is called road rage? People in traffic seem to be in a world by themselves without regards for others. They may follow the rules of the road, yet act as if they're the only ones on the road. David Osberger, in his book Caring Enough to Confront, says, anger is a demand for an apology for being cut off. Your perception is that since you were cut off, the person was ignoring you. To be ignored or rejected produces a reflex action demanding recognition. Whether it was love or anger, the relationship is affected. How do we handle our relationships on a daily basis and keep our emotions on the plus side? In relationship management, it's not all about how we view others. We need to become aware of how others view us. What is their first impression of us? First impressions fall into what is known as the public view. It's what others see. Now there is another view. It's called the private view. It's what we know about ourselves and may not want to share with others. Studies show that 80% of our communication with others is nonverbal. Others see our actions and our attitudes. They may be annoying personality traits which we cannot see and therefore are called blind spots. We all have them. Yes, we do. Ever seen a person jump into action to save another from a life-threatening situation? When it's all over, we call them heroes. And what does the hero say? I didn't do anything that someone else could have done given the same situation. It's an area that is unknown to both the public and ourselves. It was a hidden capability. We call it hidden from view. This window was originally developed by two doctors by the name of Joseph Luff and Harry Ingram. They combined their two names and called this a Johari window model. Relationship management requires us to take into account all of the actions and the attitudes that we find in these areas. We need to communicate with each other, and that is the problem within every relationship. The person speaking must encode their thoughts and ideas into sounds that we call words. The listener must decode the sound. But what if the listener does not understand the sound? I heard what you said, yet I don't understand what you meant. Then all you have is noise. You're only broadcasting. Communication requires a listener to give feedback, and if this too is misunderstood, only noise is the result. Both may be speaking, yet no one understands. Nelson Mandela is quoted as saying, "Speak to a man in a language that he understands, and you can reach his mind. Speak to a man in his own language, and you can reach his heart." Real communication requires an exchange of information that both sides understand. What causes noise? It's a perception difference. Example: if I encode the word nut, what is your perception? Since I was a mechanical engineer for 39 years, you may have thought that the word meant, yet I meant. Who's right? Both. What kind of communication took place? None. There are 5 steps to good communications. Pay attention to the other person. Flip the switch to listen. Monitor the nonverbal language of the person speaking. Repeat what they said in your own words. Oh, so you mean? You need to give the other person a chance to correct what you heard. Do not assume. Remember, a nut may not be a nut. Then ask more questions and encourage the other person to give feedback. In this way, you'll know if your message is getting through. In order for a relationship to grow, we need to know more about the other person. This requires each one to reveal hidden information from their private block. As we reveal hidden information about ourselves, we're trusting others to accept it without criticism. If they offer feedback about our blind spots, the feedback will result in either a greater bond between the two people, or it will cause hurt feelings and separation. Do you remember the areas that influence your information processing? If you were to stack the areas, they'd look something like this. We would have a multi-level object. Each layer has its public, private, blind spot, and hidden areas. We can now see how complex a relationship can be since each area expands and contracts independently as we interact with others. The attitude of our relationship levels can be identified. If you were asked what level are your relationships on, what would you say? Are all of your relationships at 1 because you were taught? I have to look out for number 1. If I don't, no one else will. It's my way or no way. I must win. You must lose. The world is hostile, and I must be aggressive in order to make it. If I don't come on strong, no one will listen to me. I must prove that I am right and you're wrong. Show me a good loser, and I'll show you a loser. What would you say should be the minimum level of a relationship? Society has agreed on an acceptable relationship behavior pattern. The ability to control one's actions can be charted from self-indulgence to self-control. Your behavior will be judged by society. Society has drawn a line that says what behavior will be tolerated. You cross the red line and you've broken the law. Society has placed a punishment level on each offense. Some offenses carry a stronger punishment. Misdemeanors are punishable by a cash fine or you sitting in county jail up to 1 year. Society has drawn another line. You cross the black line and it's a felony. Now you can spend a lifetime in jail, and if you kill someone, it could mean your death. We find this standard is true whether you're in a metropolitan cultural center or deep in the heart of a jungle. It's called moral law. When people compare their actions to others' actions with comments like, well, my behavior's not so bad. In fact, it's far better than his. We find that it's a result of pride. And we all know that pride goes before a fall. In part 1, we have been setting the foundation for an interpersonal relationship. In part 2, we'll look at the disrupted expectations that occur in all relationships and what causes them.